Most leaders think that influence comes from being clear, but spoiler alert, it doesn't. Because you can say something perfectly and people will still ignore it. And in contrast, you can say something with the exact right intention, the exact right presence. And even if the words aren't all there, you will have people eating out of the palm of your hand. And so today, I want to talk about what it is that you bring to the table that allows people to listen and lean into every word you're saying, regardless of what those words are. Because if you are at the point where your team keeps pushing back, asking the same questions over and over again, or just not doing what it is that you are asking them to do, it is not a clarity problem. It's this. It is our instinct to assume that people think like we do. And I'm not going to lie, to some extent, in one very specific way, that's true. People think like us in that I believe that I'm important, and so does everybody else. I believe that my work makes sense, and so do you and everyone else. And I believe that my perspective is valid. But the mistake we make is assuming that they are looking at it from the exact same vantage point as we are. And when they're not, we label it. When they look at things through their perspective, we see that as resistance to looking at it through ours. When they prioritize the work that they see as so important, we consider that to be a lack of urgency around our priorities. And when they see themselves as important, we call that a bad attitude because they're putting themselves first over what we see as a priority. And we call that influence, right? Because we need all of those people to be looking down the same lens, to have the same framework, the same channel to be marching down. Influence is a little bit like water, right? It's spring, and in Wisconsin, we have all of this snow melting. So that means that there is water going everywhere. It is funneling through all of these nooks and crannies because it is finding its own way. And that is what each of those people are doing. Because they're not asking which way they should go. The water isn't holding up and being like, what would be the most strategic way to handle this? It's just finding a way to move forward. If that path already exists, it's going to take it. Now, if you want to influence it, you need to understand that water first. You need to know where it's coming from, how deep it is on that side, what's going to shape it, what obstacles are going to get in the way. Then, and only then, can you channel the water to flow in a certain direction. And the same is true of your people. When you want to influence them to all march in the same line to accomplish the same goal, you have to understand them first. And that is what we are going to get into today, because there are 3 C's that will help you understand your team so that you can allow them to march in the same order, all row in the same direction, and make the progress that you want to make. So what are those 3 C's? Those are curiosity, communication, and connection. We are going to dig into each one, but I promise you they will build on each other. So this is going to be a video that you want to stop what you're doing, take some notes, and really dig into this content. Okay, so let's start in curiosity. This one is so often the most difficult one for people to get into because as leaders, we are taught that we are always supposed to be right. We are supposed to have the right answer from the time we're kids, right? I know for me, the very first time that I was in leadership was actually a class president role. And I'm not going to lie, I loved it. I loved making decisions. I loved having people come to me for my opinion. And I loved running the meetings. I would create this agenda in my head. I wasn't about to share it out early because A, I wasn't that prepared, and B, I didn't want people to know the topics to be able to prepare ahead of time. I wanted to be the one who had all of the information in that situation. So I would stand up there in front of the class with this mental agenda. And as I went through every single topic in my head, I would get to the end of one and say, okay, any questions, comments, and concerns? No? Okay, great. Moving on. I didn't even pause because really what I meant was, good. Don't challenge me. Don't ask me any questions. Don't push on anything. Because if I'm being honest, I was afraid of what people would say. I was afraid of what would happen if I wasn't 100% right all of the time. Now, let's be honest. When was the last time that you had that same thought? Because it's hard. It's tough to know that there are going to be people in the audience, people who are supposed to be listening to you that might have more information on a topic or might have a question that sparks an idea that you never thought of and you are not prepared to answer. Now, as you gain a little bit more experience, as I gained a little bit more experience for sure, I evolved, but only a little bit, right? I got to the point that I truly did want to hear what people had to say. I wanted to hear the questions that they had, but I was really quick to categorize them. Let me know if you are in this level in your leadership, right? Categorize in the comments if this is where you're at. So you ask for questions, comments, and concerns, or some variation, right? And you mean it. You want that information, but you're going to say it is either legitimate or not legitimate, right? So you get something like a question of, how long is this really going to take? We're going to put in this new initiative. We are going to adopt this new system. And someone raises their hand and says, how long is this actually going to take? Now, if it's someone that I respect, if it's someone that I already trust, then I'm just going to answer that question. Oh, Molly really just wants to know a timeline. That's great. Good job, Molly. You are so on board. You just want to know how long this is going to take. And so we can walk through the timeline. What beautifulness is this, right? But if it's the gyms of the world, if it's the people that I don't have a relationship with, I don't respect, and I don't trust, I'm going to be leaning back in my chair a little bit going, you're just pushing back because you don't want to put the effort in. You are just trying to make it more difficult, not legitimate, right? Maybe it's Betty Boomer that you've been working with for years, and you know she's going to ask a question like this, and you're sure that it's just because she doesn't like change. Well, you can put that in that category too, not legitimate. But here's the problem. Sometimes you're right. And I'm sure you thought I was going to go the other direction with that, right? You thought I was going to say, sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes people aren't just trying to push back. Sometimes people have other questions. No, the problem is that you are going to be right sometimes. You're going to be right that Betty doesn't want to change. You're going to be right that Jim is just trying to throw up obstacles. They are resisting things sometimes. They are avoiding it sometimes. And yet, that doesn't help you move forward. Just knowing that there is a rock in front of wherever the water is running from doesn't actually help you channel it. If you just go, oh, rock, that's too bad, and walk away, what benefit have you provided, right? So it doesn't help to just know that I'm right. It doesn't help to cross my arms over my chest and just say, well, I guess they're just trying to make problems. All I did was make both of us stuck. They stayed in resistance and I stayed frustrated. Nothing changed. I didn't actually get to move in the right direction. And what I didn't realize at first was that the pushback that I was avoiding was the exact thing that I needed to influence her. So again, let's just think about this Betty character, right? She's afraid of change. She wants to know what's going on, what the plan is, why we're even doing this in the first place. My assumption could be that she doesn't want to change. But if I need her to take action, I need her to say, test this new system as we're rolling it out. Instead of shutting that down, I need to get curious. So when Betty says, what's the point? We've been talking about this new system for 30 years. Nothing ever changes. What is the point? So the old me, right? The first version of me wasn't even open to hearing that. I would have closed the door on that meeting before she ever got the chance to say it and just hoped that it never made it back to me so I didn't have to address it. That middle version of me, where I was still growing and learning as a leader, I would go, well, here we go again. Betty's just pushing back. Not a legitimate concern. Let's move on, right? Let's just steamroll over her. But when you are an advanced leader, when you can be strategic in your leadership, you can say things like, Betty, help me understand where you are coming from on this one. What is your concern with the fact that this has been going on for so long? Help me understand. Now she'll open up a little bit more. Now she'll say something like, every time we start this process, I just get double time work, and that's fine, except that in the end, it doesn't go anywhere. And all of that work that I spent my nights and my mornings on, it's just going to get scrapped. Okay, this has nothing to do with the system. This has nothing to do with the amount of time that it's taken to get to this point. This is all about Betty's work being wasted. And I don't know about you, but I don't want my work wasted. This is a completely legitimate concern for her to have. And so instead of casting it off, when really she may have been saying it because she was trying to be an obstacle, I don't want to do this again, so I'm going to do whatever I can to put on the brakes. Maybe I was right. By being curious, I can remove that block. I can remove that rock that is standing in the way of her power, of that water that I want to use, and allow myself to influence her. Because that curiosity, it gives you this perfect, specific frame that that person needs. And I don't know if you've ever thought about this, but frames have a purpose, and it's not to put your picture on the wall, right? It is not so that you can protect the picture that's in them. You use a frame so that it draws attention in. Now, I have 3 children, and like any good Midwestern mom, I have 1 million pictures on my refrigerator. Some of them are photographs, some of them are drawings, some of them are things that they've colored. There are all kinds of things. You can barely even see that there is a refrigerator underneath it. But when you walk into the house, there is one picture that catches your eye. And that is a self-portrait that my 10-year-old did 5 years ago. And the reason it catches your eye is not because it is this beautiful drawing. He was 5 years old. It's 5-year-old quality, right? The reason it catches your eye is because it is this perfect golden frame made out of puzzle pieces, spray painted puzzle pieces that go around this self-portrait. It is this frame, the only thing that is framed on the fridge that draws your attention in. When people start throwing out problems, when they start throwing out obstacles, that yes, they might be trying to cause a problem, those are just those little puzzle pieces that you get to collect and put all together in this golden frame to frame up your solution, the system, the initiative, the project, the new KPIs, whatever your message is. You get to frame it in this perfect way to hand it back to them that they can see exactly what the benefit is to them. So Betty's pushback, that is just a way for me to frame my perfect answer to her. So maybe when, she tells me that she doesn't want her work to be thrown away, right? I can use that. I can pick that up. I can frame it back to her to say, oh, Betty, I am so glad you shared that with me, because that 30 years of experience, that isn't scrapped. That isn't wasted. That is the very reason that I need you to test this time, because when this goes into production, and it will go into production, you have the most experience and the best eye for what is going to make it work right. It allows me to give her exactly what she needs to focus on so that the message lands perfectly for her. Now, that kind of perfectly brings me to the second C, communication, because you'll notice that it all needed to start before I even spoke. Communication starts before anyone speaks. In fact, you make your first impression within a fraction of a second. And I'm not talking about the first impression, like the first time you've ever met someone. I mean that impression as they're walking up to start that communication with you, as they're opening up their email. It is at that point that something else is speaking for you that isn't your words. In that moment, it could be your look, it could be physically what you brought to the conversation, or it could be your presence, right? That's something a little more deep seated. When you step in front of a group, when you walk up to somebody in the hallway, when you even cross paths with them in the parking lot, you are communicating and creating your presence right off the bat because they're getting a perception of you. Your expression, your body language, your clothing, everything gives them this perception of you. And their perception is your reality. You have to meet them where they are at and take it just one step above. You bring that energy up just one notch. Don't wear a three-piece suit on the plant floor. Don't bring your cheerleader energy into the warehouse. You need to just seem like you care. And a lot of people scoff at that statement. You need to seem like you care because they'll say, well, I care. I told them that I cared and they could come to me with questions. With that energy, with that sort of abrasive, hard hitting energy, that doesn't seem like you care. Sounds like you said the words, but the words are only 7% of a communication. The other 93% is all of that nonverbal presence that you're providing. And so you need to get them to a point that they want the information from you, that they are comfortable with you, that they are respecting and trusting what you have to offer. And so many people confuse this vibe and this energy and this empathy that you need prior to any words coming out of your mouth or any words being typed into your keyboard with being a little too soft. And at times, they don't even get to the point. Have you ever been in that meeting where the leader is just going on about how hard you work and how impressed they are? They're talking to the entire team and they're just gushing about how much they appreciate everything that you do and how they know that it's so much work to do it. And you walk out thinking, were they celebrating me? Or did they have something they wanted to coach me on? Was there something that we needed to correct, or was this just to give us kudos? And you're not sure because they never got to the main point. You have to keep the point at the forefront, even while you're supporting them in the moment, even while you're reading the room and bringing up the energy. You have to know where you're going with the whole point of the communication. And that might sound like a lot, but really it's just a matter of seeing the starting line and the finish line in the same race, right? You would never have a runner show up to a race, show up to a track and field day, and go, wait a minute, you need me to know where the start is and the finish? You need me to know the goal and the starting line? That's way too much. I can't do that. The only reason it feels like too much now is because you're not doing it, because you haven't prepared for that race. Now, in either event, when you are running or when you're communicating, understanding that gets a whole lot easier when you're listening. And listening is a whole body experience. But the piece that most people miss is listening with your mouth, right? Because we know how to listen with our eyes, right? We just talked about watching people, observing the energy in the room and trying to figure out how we can bring that up one notch. We obviously know that we can listen with our ears, but so many people say to just keep your mouth shut. Now, again, I'm going to bring you back to Betty. What would have happened if she would have said, why do we keep putting this work into this? And I would have just gone, mm-hmm. She would have just continued to talk herself into that being a problem. She would have continued to reiterate and keep saying what was wrong. She would have gone down this spiral that wasn't going to help her or anybody else. If I would not have listened with my mouth, we wouldn't have gotten to the point that we did, to the point that I could influence her. So, did you catch where I did that with Betty? Where I said, help me understand. Tell me more about this. That is when you are using your mouth to open up a bigger conversation and giving them even more of the stage, but already influencing them, channeling that water where you want it to go. Once they start giving you more information, that is where you start paraphrasing, which is another great example of listening with your mouth. Now, we're not talking about repeating. We are not parroting back to them exactly what they said. We are paraphrasing to ensure that we are clear. So if someone says, I'm so frustrated, and all you say is, I hear you are frustrated, you're not done. That's parroting it back. All that means, if that's all you're able to do, is to say, I hear that you're frustrated. That means that you don't have enough clarity. That is when you go back and ask more of those clarifying questions. That is when you go back and say, help me understand what's going on here. Or my personal favorite, I hear what you're saying, but your expression doesn't seem to match. Or I hear the words, but your tone is telling me something a little bit different. Can you help me understand? Calling out someone in that really gentle way to say, I'm seeing a disconnect. Can you help me understand? Allows them to either clarify for you, oh, no, I don't know, I didn't mean it to come out quite that abrasive. Or I was thinking of something else. That's why my face was making the face. Or to say, I am on board and I will do what you need me to do, but I don't think this is the right path because, and really get to the root of what that obstacle is so you can remove that stone and channel the water where you need it to. Right, this leads us to our final C, connection. Connection inspires action. And when you are connected to someone, your perception improves automatically, right? It's like this upward spiral, allowing you to get curious and more easily communicate. Even more honestly, right? You are more apt to even throw out those obstacles and challenges because you have the connection, because you trust that they will allow you to move around them with ease. Now, the opposite can be true too. Think of a recent president, maybe one that we've had in the last 10 to 15 years. There's likely one that you can think of that you just did not connect with. Odds are, if you didn't connect with him, you had no interest in getting curious about what he meant or what he stood for. Odds are you weren't interested in listening with your whole body to what he had to communicate. Now, with one that you did connect with, because I'd be willing to bet if there was one you didn't connect with at all in the last 10 to 15 years, there's one that you did. And in that case, even when he said something that didn't sound great, that didn't sound quite right, it rubbed you the wrong way, you said, I want a little more context on that, because you were curious about where he was coming from when he said it. Before he said anything right, you assumed, you had an open and positive intent. You assumed that it came from a good place. You were confident that he was keeping the main thing, and that all roads were leading to that, even if everything else wasn't perfect, right? Remember how I said at the beginning, it's not just about clarity. It's about how you feel about the person. That is because you wanted to work with that president, that leader, whoever it was, and you wanted to be part of the plan. You wanted to see yourself in his vision. And so because you wanted to, because you felt that connection, you did. And it's because when people feel understood and cared for, then what they want is to work with you. They want to follow your lead. And without it, they will literally choose pain and frustration. With it, they will choose to be aligned and consistent with it. So this whole time I've been giving you this analogy of water, right? So curiosity, that shows you where the water is coming from. That gives you an idea of the depth and the strength of the water that you're getting. Communication allows you to remove those obstacles so that you can keep that water flowing. And connection, that allows you to guide it and funnel it in the direction that you want it to go to achieve the goals you're trying to achieve. But these aren't separate skills. They are a system that all works together. And here's the real difference. There's a difference between knowing this, right? Between being aware that there are 3 C's and that they're interconnected and they allow you to influence people, and using it on a consistent basis. Those aren't the same thing. Most leaders learn these tools. Most leaders learn that communication is important. Most leaders learn that connection is valuable with their team. And some of the more moderate, little bit more advanced will learn that curiosity is key to both. But under pressure, they don't put them into practice. They default, right? They fall back on those old habits, on those old assumptions. The only way to get around that, the only way to keep that water funneling through the channel that you have created is to maintain it. It's to create this strong foundation so that you can keep everyone rowing in that same direction and keep that water moving steadily. You don't have to avoid the pushback. You don't have to label the people. You don't have to lose your message in the process. But in order to do that, you do have to work at it consistently. And that is exactly what my coaching clients do. Every single week, we get together so that they can work on the exact channel that they need to create in their work, their team, in their business, to get the results and hit the goals that they have set. Now, if that is something that you want in your business and for your team, then I would encourage you to click the link below for a totally free, no strings attached consultation so that we can discover what coaching could potentially do for you. I hope that this video was so helpful for you and that the 3 C's are going to revolutionize the way you look at influencing your team. And if you know someone who this could impact, send it their way.